Picture this. An empire, 3,000 years old, is on the verge of total collapse. For ages, it's been a shadow of what it once was, ruled by outsiders. But what if it had one last shot? Well, that's exactly where our story begins, with the 30th Dynasty, the final line of truly Egyptian pharaohs to ever rule the Nile. Okay, so it sounds like a simple trivia question, right? Who was the last true Egyptian pharaoh? But the answer, it's not just some name you memorize. It's the final sentence in a story that stretched across 3 millennia. And to really get it, you have to understand how one of the world's greatest civilizations finally, and I mean finally, lost its independence for good. This guy right here, this is Nectanebo II. His reign was the last brilliant flash of Egyptian glory before the lights went out on native rule forever. But his story, his tragic end, was actually set in motion decades earlier, right when his dynasty began. So to see how it all fell apart, we've got to go back to the beginning.
So where did this final defiant chapter of Egyptian independence even come from? Well, it all kicked off with a rebellion against the global superpower of the day.
You have to remember, for a long time, Egypt wasn't calling its own shots. The ridiculously powerful Persian Empire had rolled in and conquered the Nile Valley, making it the richest piece of their massive kingdom. But that Egyptian identity, forged over thousands of years, it was tough. And that desire to be free was always simmering just below the surface. And eventually, that simmering resentment just exploded. Out of that fire and rebellion, a new dynasty rose up, one that was, for the first time in generations, 100% Egyptian. And just look at how quick this all happens. This entire flicker of freedom lasted less than 40 years. It's a blink of an eye. It kicks off in 380 BC with a rebellion led by Nectanebo I. Then it spirals into family drama under his son Teos, which leads to a dramatic coup by our main guy, Nectanebo II, and then, poofed, it all collapses in 343 BCE, a short but incredibly intense era. Now the founder, Nectanebo I, he was a brilliant strategist. He didn't just kick the Persians out. He immediately got to work rebuilding. He beefed up the borders, hired these elite Greek mercenaries, but crucially, he launched this huge program to restore Egypt's temples. And this wasn't just about religion, Temples were the heart of the economy. They were the biggest employers, the biggest landowners. Fixing them up meant fixing Egypt's infrastructure and, just as important, its national pride. But almost all of that hard work was nearly thrown away by the founder's own son. Yep, ambition and ego were about to crack the very foundation of this brand new throne. And right here, you can see the whole problem. It's a total clash of visions. The father, Nectanebo I, was focused inward, on making Egypt strong again. His son, Teos, was looking outward. He was obsessed with taking the fight to Persia. But to pay for it, he started slapping heavy taxes on people and even seizing temple lands. This made the powerful priests and basically everyone else really angry. So you get this crazy paradox. On the one hand, native rule restored, art flourished. It was a genuine cultural rebirth. But simmering just underneath all that, a dangerous instability loomed, and it was all because of Teos' reckless plans. And all that instability, it led to exactly what you'd expect, a coup. Teos was overthrown by his nephew, Nectanebo II, who would end up overseeing Egypt's last magnificent renaissance.
Nectanebo II clearly learned from his uncle's mistakes. He turned all his attention back to what made Egypt, well, Egypt, its gods and its incredible culture. He poured money and resources into a massive construction boom, connecting his own rule directly to the glory of the legendary pharaohs of old.
And when I say massive, I mean it. The scale was just staggering. Huge new additions to the great temple at Karnak, the beautiful sanctuary of Isis at Philae, brand new complexes all over the Delta. This was way more than just stone and mortar. It was a massive political statement, a declaration from Nectanebo II that the glory days of ancient Egypt were back. So in the end, that's the legacy of this dynasty. That final, defiant explosion of creativity, massive temple construction and artistic revival defined the dynasty. It really was a golden age, but it was born under the constant shadow of a huge, looming threat. Because the Persian Empire, they hadn't forgotten about Egypt. It was their wealthiest province, and you better believe they were coming back to get it. And in 343 BCE, that threat became a brutal reality. The Persian king Artaxerxes III, who was known for being absolutely ruthless, launched an enormous invasion to take back Egypt once and for all. The invasion was just overwhelming. Artaxerxes' forces, with this massive army and their own Greek mercenaries, just smashed the Egyptian defenses at the key city of Pelusium. Nectanebo II, he fought to save his kingdom, he really did, but it just wasn't enough. He was defeated.
343 BCE. That's the date it all ends. The year the flame of native pharaonic rule was finally snuffed out.
So what happened to our last pharaoh? Nectanebo II fled. He ran south, deep into Nubia, and then he just vanished from the history books. The last Egyptian to ever hold the title of pharaoh was now in exile, and his kingdom was gone forever.
And his flight, it wasn't just the end of a dynasty. It was really the end of an entire era of human history.
So why do we even care about this short-lived dynasty? Well, it matters because it represents so many critical lasts. It was Egypt's very last native dynasty. It was its final great cultural revival. And it was the last big stand for their traditional religion before waves of foreign influence changed everything. Bottom line, its fall marked the definite end of pharaonic independence.
And what came next really tells the whole story. The Persians came back, but not for long. Then came Alexander the Great and the Macedonians, then the Greek Ptolemies, like Cleopatra, and finally the Romans. Never again would a native Egyptian rule as pharaoh. It leaves you with this amazing question to think about, doesn't it? What if Nectanebo had actually won that final battle? What if this brief, brilliant revival wasn't the last page of the book, but the start of a whole new chapter for Egypt? How different would the world we live in today actually be? It's something to think about.